and everybody's like, gotcha. And I leave work and everybody's like, hey, you're straight. We're still okay with that. And 365 days of a year, I get to be straight, and absolutely no one ever has any problem with it whatsoever.
Backlash?
Wow. There's no backlash.
Wow.
But guess what? Guess what? Now there's one day a year. There's one day a year where I get to celebrate the fact that nobody has any problem whatsoever with the fact that I'm straight.
That's really brave, Judy.
Yeah, and I get to wear sunglasses that say Walmart on them.
Nice.
And that's my story, you guys.
That is beautiful.
And it's going to be straight pride, and that's what it's all about.
It's funny because when they started talking about straight pride, and so if you guys, I'm sure it was one of the stories that I thought was going to. I was hoping, not thought, hope would have a very short life cycle in the media. I thought that we'd see a couple of it.
Gained steam.
I almost was hoping because as you were reading the stories about straight pride, some of it was so laughable.
Like what I just said?
I thought I was hoping that it was going to turn out to be some khaki-wearing guy trying to be facetious, and that it was going to turn into, because then when you started looking at the products and the flag and the things that they were coming with, they were so atrocious that I presumed they were made up. There's no way that people would be trying to not only co-opt this into an actual movement, but then use these products to support their decision to have this movement.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You know what the password is to get into the Straight Pride Parade?
What's that?
Reverse racism.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's all being headed up by the neo-Nazi fascist movement. I can't remember the name of the guy who's behind it.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
He's going to be part of it, but there's a other guy that's they're all the same people.
Sahedi.
You know what I mean?
Isn't that his last name? Sahedi.
Yeah. There's a bigger,
Mark
scarier,
Sahedi.
darker. Yes. Yeah, that's the guy. So it's a dangerous thing.
I agree.
It's a very slippery slope, isn't it?
Right. Well, is it a slippery slope, or
I'm
is
sorry,
it a for sure problem? Okay, what do you mean?
I meant a very slippery slope down into the cesspool of isms, racism, sexism, all the far right craziness that we're seeing.
Right. And I do appreciate this part of it, is that it has had some very good conversation starters out for what we'll consider our allies who are, the proper supportive white cisgender men, and I think that, you do need to have them as part of the conversation, because otherwise it just turns into more, well, those marginalized communities are always complaining and they are taking things away from us. And Sam, you had sent this story, and actually Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo from CNN covered it. And I really appreciated the way that they did it, because if you're not familiar with Don Lemon, he is an out gay man of color. Chris Cuomo, they're really good friends. They've worked with each other for years. And so it was interesting to me to hear their interaction and to also hear Chris Cuomo's explanation on why this is a thing.
Yeah. So, listen, I think it's march if you want with your straight pride parade.
No,
but
not on this one. No straight pride.
But know that you're being ignorant.
Straight pride, at best, you're being ignorant. At best, you're being ignorant if you join. But let's be honest. You know what you're doing if you join something like that. You're trying to say that you don't like what you see as its opposite. There is no need for a straight pride. This is about recognizing minorities, recognizing people that need a come up, not about saying that we're all equal, we can all do it. That's the same thing as saying all lives matter.
Do you really think that, let's just be honest, do you really think that straight people are aggrieved and oppressed? I am so shocked by young men. I was just talking about this with one of my guests who's coming up, Michael D'Antonio. Young men, 20-something and 30-something-year-old men, many heterosexual men, they're so aggrieved right now, and I don't understand what's going on.
I think that.
And I'm going to pause it there for a second before I play the rest of what Chris Cuomo says. And this is why I was saying, hearing his perspective on this, as even though he's not in that age group, he's older, but he's lived through that. And to hear his interpretation of why this process happens, because I think, yes, it's easy for me, as a woman of color in my 40s sit there and go, this is absolute nonsense. But people also look at me like, well, you don't understand, and you're this, and I'm part of the problem, not part of the solution. And so they have a way of already shouting us down before we get a chance to say anything. So to have a Chris Cuomo have his interpretation of what it is and to be the one that says, no, this is absolutely wrong, I feel is very necessary in this conversation.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a son who's
Right.
13 years old. He's a white male. He's going to grow up to be a white man. And we live in the city in a neighborhood that's very diverse. We're right in the middle of the city. Central, our neighborhood is literally called Central, Minneapolis. And his friend group is really diverse. Most times when he's hanging out with his friends, he might be the only white boy.
Right.
And I like that because I think it will give him... I'm glad I don't live in a suburb where his group is just a bunch of white boys.
Right.
Where he'll think of people as other than or this, that, or they get together and talk and they feel hard done by or they just have one perspective. I want him to just be in the mix of a bunch of different things and not feel like there's us and them or a thing or whatever can happen, because I don't understand this perspective of where the 20-something white men feel like some wrong has been done to them.
Right. So here's was Chris's...
It's mind-blowing to me.
It is.
Here's Chris's explanation of that.
There's a perception, and frankly, I think the president did a good job of connecting with this angst. Real or not, people can feel things, right? Emotions aren't always based on fact, and it's that multiculturalism, the push for diversity, the push to have more of mixed situations means, naturally and mathematically, a diminution, a reduction in how many white males you have. They take that as a threat. Instead of seeing it as a boosting of all of the different types of perspectives we can have empowering the society, they see it as them being marginalized in the talk and what people want in attitudes and what they want us to say and to call each other, that all this political correctness is threatening what they identify with as our culture.
That, I think, is very interesting and an interesting summation of why they feel threat. And I do agree with him that you are allowed to feel things. But I think that we have to continue the conversation like what Judy was saying, where it's how do we encourage all of the cultural circles that we have to continue to blend in a way that people go, no, just people are doing better. It's better for the society, because clearly some people don't believe that.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand how it can be a threat to you just because you have a friend that's one thing and another thing and you live in a city and that's just what it's like. I mean, I don't understand how that's a threat to you.
Right. Well,
it makes no sense to me.
It's a perceived loss of power and status, and which is, of course, the opposite is true.
My brain doesn't work that way.
Right. Or it's also, I mean, I will give them this, and I agree with Don Lemon to this point. It's like if you are at least becoming activated in some way and continuing to have a conversation, they are right that it does make it so that if we are eventually leveling the playing field, you may not get the rubber stamp of approval as easily as you had historically. Yeah. And sometimes because of the way the power structure in society was created, you were organically given more power at that time by, and status based upon race and gender.
More
and
power.
Go ahead. And those were slowly over time morphing and changing and distorting, and we are getting a lot of, I believe, some backlash because of that.
I was just going to say more power and less being questioned.
Correct.
I think that's part of the defensiveness is feeling questioned.
If that's your argument that I want to be given more power based on the way I was born, I have more merit because I was born of a gender and a color. You want to stand on that hill, then go stand on it.
They will.
They are. I won't stand on it. And I just want to back up because we never really said what was happening. But basically, Boston is holding a straight pride parade. This is really happening. Tentatively, it might be finalized now, but tentatively the date is August 31st of this year. And the reason that it's happening is because this group of people, they filed a discrimination complaint against the city of Boston, saying that because a gay pride parade is being held, they should be allowed to have a straight pride parade. And the city of Boston felt like they wouldn't have a leg to stand on in litigation against this, so they gave them the permit to be able to have this. And ever since this tweet went out, it's been publicized that this parade is happening. It started with this tweet, and Twitter went wild, and then Twitter went wilder, and then everybody else picked up on it, and it's just been like snowballing into this crazy thing. It's just bananas.
I hope that we continue to have these conversations, because I do think that that is genuinely how you continue to affect change, is being able to discuss this. Because if people are too afraid to talk to me about what it's like from my perspective, and I'm too afraid to go, well, no, let me explain my perspective and try to articulate these, then you never have any growth. So that part of it, I'm glad that they came up with this idea. I do think that it's, I also like that some people are being very clever in the way that they are clowning them, because I think that works, because I would like it to, to showcase the lunacy of this. And hopefully that is a deterrent from people. I don't like to shame people out of things, but I like, to be able to sit there and go, in an intelligent but also comical manner, how insane it is for them to do this, and that they look like a Reno 911 character by doing this and showing up in khakis, and the flag is all shades of gray. It looks
depressing.
Insane.
It looks so
they
stupid.
have pins that are just stripes. They made a rainbow. They made
That's
a
gray.
rainbow that is black and shades of gray. It is the saddest thing. It
looks like a
makes
joke.
My
It
heart
does look like
It
a
looks
joke.
like a joke to me.
Well, I mean, the gay pride rainbow flag and rainbow colors is beautiful, because it's just accepting of everybody.
Right.
It's like, we accept you. And then what is black and white? It's just like in your face. It's just depressing.
Binary.
And like anything, it's just it's like another thing. Like, how embarrassing for you. How embarrassing for me. I'm just embarrassed and disgusted by all of it.
Which goes back to what I was saying, when I first started looking at all of the ancillary products, why I was going, this is clearly a joke. Because to sit there and come up with a colorless palette like that, to showcase that, looked to me like more of somebody eventually is going to say, look how our world, look how drab and sad our world would be if it was monochromatic like this. If it was this, look what we would have. And I was hoping that was what it was going to be. It was going to be some joke for that new Comedy Central special that had the Vave tissues. I was hoping that they were going to say that this was really just showing why it is good to have this combination and this fluidity, and why we need to have all of these different varieties in our world. And now it's turned out that maybe I was wrong, and it actually is some people that are taking this absolutely seriously.
Right, and they don't recognize the inherent irony of that.
I get it. So I don't know.
They have a straight pride shirt, gray, black, and white.
I know, it's super
$21.99 on Amazon. It's so bad.
I hope it does turn out that somebody thought it was going to be ironic, and then it had a life of their own, and eventually they show up there in August and somebody goes, surprise, we got you. This is actually not really a thing.
I have a fear that it's going to turn out to be one of those horrible events where all those men show up, angry men show up and march like psychos.
And they will, because these people, the Mark Sahady that we mentioned, and the group he's created called the Super Happy Fun America group, they are violent,
right?
They seed violence, and that'll happen again here. This is
horrible.
no different than other events that they have put on.
Well, the one other thing that I hope does happen is that I am very happy that a lot of these people who we were not as aware of are continuing to show themselves. So the rest of us can band together and hopefully show that we continue to outnumber them. All right, next segment. This one is one that we are also familiar with. Our segment, Does This Make Me Old? Does This Make Me Old is usually where we look at a product or something that's going on out there in the media that we're like, is this a thing? Did I miss the boat on this one? So we have another story about New Coke.
Yeah, we do.
Really? Is New Coke new again?
Here's the thing. Let me give you a little background, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Coke is reintroducing a failed product from 35 years ago, which would be 1985, when it changed the formula for its